All right, good morning, JNUC. Are we all awake? Sufficiently caffeinated after last night? I think this is JNUC's bravest warriors here, the people that showed up to the first session after the party. Did y'all have fun? It's a good time? Just like the few lingering claps, like, yeah, not too loud, it's fine. My name is Zach Halliwell. I'm a learning experience designer here at Jamf. You may recognize me from my fame in the Jamf 100 course or the Jamf Online Training Catalog. No, it's fine. I'm not too offended. It's all right. Today, I have my good friends Neil Martin. He's a system engineer here at Jamf, and then Tristan Valente with Netop. And this session is automating Apple endpoints management, Git CI/CD, and Terraform for an efficient Jamf Pro administration. You might have missed the slide when you were coming in, but if you need live translation or captioning, I've got a little placard in the back that you can just scan your QR code with. Otherwise, gentlemen, take it away.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Yes. Sorry, important stuff first.
Got to catch you all.
Thank you. It's enough for this early in the morning. Yes. So hi, everyone. This session is about whatever's written here. It's a bit long, so I'm just not going to repeat it. We're going to introduce you to Terraform, Git, CI/CD for everything that is Jamf Pro. So, my name is Tristan Valente. As everybody can hear already, I'm French. Don't worry, I'm doing my best to speak in English, so bear with me for a second. So we've put the slides in dark mode for everyone, so I know last night was pretty hard for some guys, so we should be easy on that. So I work at Netop in France. We are Jamf's biggest partner, and we handle MSP services, Jamf integration, consulting, mostly around Apple, but not only. And my role is on the more the technical side. I manage everything for the automation, services, and a bit of pre-sales also. Just a quick shout out to my colleague Emmanuel Cano, who's not here, but is doing most of the work on the Terraform side. You will see afterwards. So yeah. So we'll speak about Terraform and infrastructure as code, Terraform providers from Jamf Pro, because now there's multiple since the keynote Tuesday, Git and version control, templating your Jamf deployment, and CI/CD concepts, just a quick overview of what this is. So I'll talk really quickly about what we do at Netop and why we are here today. So we manage more than 150 Jamf Pro instances, and it comes with its shares of challenges. We have two main kinds of customers. We have MSPs, where we do everything, and they do nothing, basically. And we have customers where we are in shared management, where we can do stuff, and the customer can also do stuff on the console, which is not great. So for both customers, we have many new instances to turn up per year. So we have lots of clickings to do, lots of configuration profiles, policies, packages, and yeah, and the updating part too. So I'm just going to speak really quickly about what challenges we have and how it's multiplied by the number of customers we have. So you have complex Jamf environments where you have multiple sites, countries, instances per customer, sometimes with like dev and prod instances. You have customers who have like all the use cases at the same time, iPads in stores, BYOD iPhones, iMacs for training, classic endpoints. So, and you also have multiple admins making changes at the same time, which can add confusion and risk for errors. We deal with a wide range of technical requirements, of course. We have lots of different IDPs, lots of different certificates and network setups, lots of different VPNs, EDRs, enrollment workflows. We also have to track all the product issues that we can see. Jamf is a great product. It also has product issues. And when we have to quickly see, when we have new issues that appear, we need to understand who's affected and how badly, and we need to do it fast. We build many new Jamf instances each year, around 20 per year. Some of them are very simple, some of them are very complex, but every time it is a lot of clicking, a lot of setups, steps, and a lot of errors too, unfortunately. And my notes are actually cut, so I don't know what to say next, so I will just go on the fly with it. We have to manage also the lifecycle of all those instances, and the customers can make changes regularly, so it's very hard for us to keep track of what's actually going on each console. And also we have, of course, across the 150 instances, we have a lot of devices, So for us, like we manage something like 100,000 max. And I know for the US, that's like baby numbers, but for us in France, it's pretty big. And we have also a lot of VIPs. Think about like luxury fashion stuff, very, how to say, rigid customers, very complex customers, and lots of VIPs for that. So we have very little room for error when we work with it. So what's automation, got to do with it? So what does automation mean in a global manner? So it's about letting computers do the boring stuff, all the repetitive tasks, the error-prone processes, and generally things that take time that is best spent somewhere else. So in short, it's faster, safer, and smarter. This is what we're trying to do. It's not just about Jamf Pro or Terraform. Automation is more like a mindset that you have to bring into a company, and also you have to make sure it's actually useful to do some automation with what you work with. But I guess everyone in that room had a moment just clicking endlessly, setting something, and thinking, this is a machine's job, and then this is where usually you need some automation to help with that. So at Netop, we automate only when it makes sense. We use a lot of tools that speak with each other, like Zapier with Zendesk, Monday, and GitLab, which I'll show a bit afterwards. But the key is really don't automate just for the sake of it. Just make sure you have something to gain actually from it. To automate with Jamf, at least for our own perspective, you need three things. You need a template of your configuration, like your whole deployment, that has to be described somewhere precisely. You need a machine-readable version of that template, and you need a tool to manage like the code for both humans and machines. And this is where Git comes into place. So the templates holds everything. We have all the policies, all the profiles, all the scripts. We have all the settings of the different consoles, because we also host the project stuff in there. So it's easier to manage, share, and agree on changes that we make among admins in the company, because everything is in one place, and you can see all the changes that happen. And you can also add docs and diagrams for the bigger picture. So at Netop, we do this with Markdown and Git. We use GitLab. I guess most here use GitHub. It's the same, just different flavors. And the template took us a while to create at first, but now it's giving us a lot of advantages. Quick note also, that Neil mentioned to me like a bit earlier, to create your own template, you could always use Jamf Replicator, to save your configuration data locally and then export it to GitLab or GitHub afterwards. So just to go quickly over that, our template is in GitLab. We have some mandatory stuff that we tell customers you need to have this list correctly, otherwise we won't work with you. So you have to use Apple Silicon, of course. You have to have an Apple Business Manager account. You need to use an IDP. That IDP must be compatible with Jamf Connect, at least for now. And you need to use Jamf Setup Manager for enrollment. It used to be DEP Notify. We just switched over recently. Great tool, by the way. So the goal is to use a single template, for all of our deployments. And we still have instances where we have differences everywhere, but with time, every new console is the same template, at least at first, and that makes it very easy to manage in the long run. And we started to work with Terraform about 2 years ago, and there's still a lot of work to do, as we can see later on. So we deploy also a common baseline of basic stuff. I will not go over it, but we have configuration profiles, policies, scripts, extension attributes, just basic stuff that we feel is a collection of best practices to use as a company and to offer our customers. And we also customize some of that stuff, obviously, when we deploy, even through Terraform. Think SSIDs for the Wi-Fi profiles, login window message, self-service plus customization, that kind of thing. Now, let's speak quickly about Git. I guess most of you here have used Git, or at least know what it's about. I'll speak specifically about how it's helping us in the day-to-day operation. So Git is a version control system that tracks changes to code over time. So you can have multiple people work on the same project at the same time without overriding each other's work. You can save snapshots of your code, which are called commits most of the time. You can go back to previous versions. You can collaborate using branches, and you can then merge those branches to add new features and make sure everything works well together. It's fast. It's distributed. Everyone has a full copy of the repo at all times, And this is what makes the working stuff of GitLab and GitHub. Probably some of the stuff I don't know about, but that's all right for now. And the majority of open source projects use GitHub. We use GitLab internally for some some reasons, but that's all right. It should work probably the same with GitHub. Just give you a quick look at the template, how it looks like. So basically, we have one project for each customer with the specific stuff inside, but everything starts from that template here. We have everything that is described. We have categories that define the main building blocks of a Jamf Pro platform. You can see each time the last commit and who made the last update. We have everything described in here, but let's look at the computer configuration profiles specifically, where we store, of course, computer configuration profiles. So you can see we have all of our profiles listing here, and every time for each profile, we have the mobile config file itself, and we have a Markdown file that describes the content of the profile in a visual, human-friendly way. So if you need to quickly check what's inside the profile, how does it work, you can go to the Markdown file and check it directly instead of going into the mobile config file, which can hurt your eyes. In this Markdown file, we can find each settings that compose the configuration profile. So every time we put this kind of metadata header, because we like to see in one place who made changes, for what reason, at what date. It allows us to track changes and actors in a quick summary view, but you can do it through like the Git native stuff too. It's just nice to have one place to have everything on a specific profile. Then inside that Markdown file, you have all the options. I guess everyone here can recognize what it's about. This is what you can see on the GUI on Jamf. The category is in French here, but don't worry, you don't have to use French. You can use whatever you want, of course. Then you have the certificate part of the profile, because this is a file vote profile, where you can escrow the recovery key. You can see here we have a placeholder variable. Sorry, here you have a, here you have a placeholder variable. Yes, finally. This will get replaced when we actually deploy it through Terraform with the specific customer stuff. And finally, you have the scoping part that you all know, which always closes the Markdown document. It's always the same, I think, except for like restrictions somewhere where you have some different stuff. If we go back, we can see another example with the script, I think. Hold on. Oh, no, sorry, that's the content of the mobile file config itself, where you can access it and check it if you want, and you can also copy it raw or just download it on your Mac straight away, which is not a good practice, by the way. You should make your changes on GitLab or GitHub. So we have another variable in here. This is what will be actually replaced inside the mobile config file itself, and not just in the Markdown documentation. So Terraform will just replace that with whatever you want. So let's take another example with scripts really quickly. The approach is similar. You have a Markdown file that describes everything in the Jamf Pro configuration of the scripts and the bash file itself. And so you can see, again, the metadata stuff, the script content, and you have the scripts parameters on Jamf Pro too. So you don't actually need to go to Jamf Pro to know how a script, what it's doing, how it's deployed, and to whom. Here's an example of a change that was submitted by a clueless version of myself in one of the scripts in the template. So the advantage of Git is to let you quickly see what's been modified on a script or added or deleted inside the content. It can be true also for the policies, the profile, the settings, everything that you have described. If there is any kind of change in there, you can see it and you can agree on it. And of course here, you can see there's a little, it's a clueless version of myself who say, hey guys, what do you think about this comment ChatGPT told me to add to the script? And you can catch that before it's actually deployed in production. Even though, of course, SIP wouldn't let you do anything with that, fortunately. You can then create a merge request that will regroup all your changes in all your commits, basically. And you can review them, and then you can merge branches and forks if you have done so. If you don't know how that works, it can be very complex, but you don't have to do something complex. The rule of thumb is you have to proceed however works best for your company. And for us, we are doing releases of the template. We call it a référentiel in French. I don't know if that word exists in English, but probably, yeah. And it allows us to say, OK, we have version 1.8 of our template, which we deploy everywhere. And when we want to make changes, we have version 1.9. For example, the 1.9 was the addition of Jamf Setup Manager and the change of our zero-touch workflow for enrollment. And so it's great for us because we can, when you speak about other engineers in the company, you can say everybody knows what's inside 1.8, and everybody knows the changes coming in 1.9, and we can also automatically create release notes to send our customers and say, hey, we're doing new stuff, just look at the patch notes, and this is the new stuff we're doing on your instance. Sorry, that's just the other part of the merge where you have all the commits listed there. And you have all the workflow of approvals, contributors, approval, reviewer. Actually, the guys who made the session, Infrastructure as Code, Tuesday morning, or yesterday morning, I guess, spoke about it a bit much in depth. So if you want to check how you want to put in place a validation process for the code, you can go check their session. It was awesome. And we also use GitLab to put in their documentation where you can quickly see how stuff works without needing to go into each detail, and say, okay, zero-touch workflow, you have a lot of stuff, moving parts to check, and then you just have documentation like that where you can say, here's our target method. If you cannot use that, use the alternative method, and then avoid this method. Fortunately, they don't avoid it most of the time, but yeah, it's still written here. So you have diagrams to have a quick visual way of understanding how it works. So the main benefits for us, like I told you, it's config versioning, a big aspect of what we do. So we don't have admins making changes everywhere on each console and having customers with a lot of different, specific deployment stuff, configuration, changes here and there. You have everything into GitLab, and then you can just use that as a reference to deploy to your customers. So the release part is very important for us. We also have visibility on changes. This is great because sometimes, like the clueless version of myself will think adding something is great, and then someone else can come in before being deployed in production and say, hey, that is a stupid idea, just roll back before you're doing damage. It's also useful for beta testing, of course. It will allow you to have a version of your code with all the changes you want to make and still have your production stuff untouched and ready to go. Git also allows us to store specific customers' config. So we have the main template I showed you. Every time we spin a new instance of Jamf Pro for customers, we create a copy of that template with all of the specific data automatically applied there, which is great also for keeping specific changes of customers in one place. It's great for compliance and audit readiness. So for us, it's actually a big thing because we work a lot also with companies with high regulation stuff. And we can just say to the companies that come in or the internal teams, just go on GitLab. You have everything there. You have all the changes, who made the changes at which date, in which version of the template, and you have everything ready without ever giving access to Jamf Pro to the teams who often, at least in France, don't know how to use Jamf Pro, and they still need to check what you're doing there for some reason. So you can just give them access to GitLab, and everything is here, and you don't have any specific stuff to do to be compliant and to audits, ready for audits. And so, of course, it allows us to be ready for automation, having all your code, all your configuration on Jamf Pro described in one place in a visual way for the humans to read, and for a machine, it makes you ready to actually deploy that automatically, which is the whole point today. Also, quick note, we have a tool we use internally, which is in half French, half English. We use it to convert all the Markdown stuff you saw in the template. We convert that automatically to YAML, and it makes in a new GitLab project, and it makes us able to feed that into Terraform much more easily. So if we ever have to make changes to the configuration profile, you can go into the human-readable Markdown file, make your changes, and then we run that regularly. It will change everything to YAML automatically. So I had planned to release it in open source by today, but unfortunately we're having legal issues which make me not able to release it yet. Just keep an eye on the Terraform Slack channel on MacAdmins, and we'll release that free open source for everyone, hopefully next week, but don't quote me on that. Also, just a quick resource. When we started working on that with Neil, he pointed out that he saw the state of our commits, and he said, you need help. And so he told me to go there on that website. Basically, it will help you to create better commits. It will help you to have commits that explain what's been done, naming conventions, and all that stuff. And if you can get everyone working on GitLab using that, it will make everything much better. Also helps with automation, because everything is templated the same way. What about CI/CD? Just a quick word on that, because we won't have time to delve into it, and the awesome stuff is coming afterwards. But it stands for continuous integration and continuous delivery or deployment, depending on the context. Just think about it as an assembly line for code. Every change, when you use CI/CD, every change you make to code is built, tested, and shipped with minimal human intervention. It's just an overview of the concept. You can do a lot of stuff with that. For us at Netop, we used this concept of a pipeline. A pipeline is a chain of events that is triggered when you make a merge request or you actually fuse branches together. And it allows us to automatically start a lot of things. For example, we have a new customer, we prepare their templates, and then we want to send that to Terraform. It will also fire a Zapier webhook that will do a lot of stuff internally. Like we create tasks in Monday, we create a ticket in Zendesk for the change management, and also a statement of work automatically for the customers. And we send them the link to their own version of the template with the specific customer stuff inside, if they want to review it. If you want to go further about Git and specifically CI/CD, there were 2 great sessions in 2021 and 2023, speaking specifically about having your config inside GitHub in terms of code. And the other one is about specifically doing automated stuff with CI/CD. There was a few sessions this week about it also. I saw one yesterday, it was great. So go check that out. Understand how it works, and then you will quickly see the advantages of all that. And now, Neil will introduce you to Terraform.
Thank you very much, Tristan, and hello, everyone.
Thanks.
Cheers. It's great to be here. Please bear with me. My voice only has a little bit left after what's been a fantastic week. Before I do dive in and we start to explore this, I want to take a moment to thank my amazing colleagues on my team, Graham and Kyle, who can't be here today, unfortunately, but they have been a huge part in the whole driving force behind our MSP Services team's expansion into supporting infrastructure as code at Jamf, and without them as well, a lot of what we see here today and some of the tooling we've released and we announced at the Partner Summit would not even exist. So thank you. And, well, here's what we're here for, right? Let's introduce you to Terraform itself. What is it? I'm sure many of you know, but Terraform essentially is a command line tool. It lets you define and provision infrastructure using a declarative language. You can install and run Terraform locally on a Mac as well. Get started with it really quickly, say from Homebrew or Workbrew, which is fantastic for testing, but its real power really is unleashed when you run it inside a CI/CD pipeline, such as GitLab CI or GitHub Actions. Again, just elaborating on what Tristan said, GitHub runners, GitLab CI, think of it as just an ephemeral VM that's spun up that runs a glorified bash script and then gets destroyed. That's all they do, take the mystery away there. We hide it behind all these acronyms to make ourselves sound clever. If you're new to infrastructure as code and you do want to know more about orchestrating Terraform with it, again, my esteemed colleagues in the SE team did their awesome session yesterday. Catch that on YouTube when we release it, if you didn't get to see it as well. And just come and chat with us. So with Terraform, we start by choosing a provider. A provider essentially is a plugin to Terraform, and the plugin connects Terraform to the system or infrastructure you're managing via that system's API. Takes away any kind of messing around you need to know about that API. So those providers can be for things like AWS, Jamf Pro, shameless plug, even Apple School Manager and Apple Business Manager. There's a provider for that. Go and look for it. Providers are written in Golang or Go. I think that's the correct term. And at the moment, there are over 5,000 open source providers available. So my notes have disappeared down the screen, but I'll talk to it still. Once you've chosen your provider, a provider will essentially want to create resources inside your infrastructure. So keeping the context of Jamf Pro, a resource is something like a policy, a script, a profile. Even there are resources for some of the settings endpoints as well, like enabling self-service plus SSO settings. There's a big list. Providers also provide data sources. They're read-only parts of your infrastructure that Terraform doesn't manage. So you could read an existing smart group, for example, to extract information from it and use it further down in your workflow. And then there is this concept of state as well. So once Terraform has created a resource, it manages it and it stores its state. That state is stored in a state file, and Terraform uses that to track changes. It's important how you manage your state file if you are using Terraform to manage the life cycle of a Jamf Pro instance, for example, any infrastructure, because it needs to track the changes as your infrastructure evolves over time. In the MSP Services team, we don't worry about state because our use case for Terraform is part of our onboarder and onboarder for MSP tools, where we use Terraform behind the scenes to essentially inject a complete configuration into a Jamf Pro instance, and we throw the state file away. So please don't ask me about best practices when it comes to managing state files, because I don't know yet. But there we are. Okay, and now it's my pleasure to introduce you to the Jamf Pro provider, which makes all of this stuff possible. The Jamf Pro provider is created and maintained by these three gentlemen here, David, Joseph, and Bobby. They are our customers from Lloyds Banking Group, and they publish the provider under the banner of Deployment Theory, that GitHub organization. The provider is fully open source. It's under active development, and there's a very vibrant community channel for it in the MacAdmin Slack with the same name as the provider itself. If you're interested in the Jamf Pro API and specifically interacting with it with Terraform, go join that channel. Or just join it anyway and say hi. Get involved. That provider supports a whopping number of resources and all these things in Jamf Pro. And you can see things like policies, profiles, apps, iOS, macOS, everything, and settings. We at Jamf are proud to have contributed ourselves to some of those endpoints and resources as well. And we do work closely with the Deployment Theory team to keep this provider current with Jamf Pro APIs as they evolve when there are new versions of Jamf Pro released. Okay, let's get to the real reason why we're all here, and that's how do we actually do stuff, right? So, you start with a Terraform project, and a project would need to have at least one module. A module, so I'm going to chuck all these terminology and things at you. A module is essentially a folder, a directory inside a project, and it contains one or more text files. They've got a TF extension, and they contain all the instructions, declarations that Terraform needs to essentially manage the state of your infrastructure. A number of individual files in a module is up to you. You can have as many or as few as you like. You could have your whole Terraform project as a single file. I wouldn't recommend it, but it won't stop you. But that QR code there will take you to the HCL style guide where HashiCorp, the makers of Terraform, do give you some nice guidance on best practices with structuring your projects. So yeah, HCL. HCL is a language that Terraform uses called HashiCorp Configuration Language. The structure is quite similar to JSON and YAML. It's very human readable, but it also has powerful features that include variable handling. You can do functions and expressions, conditionals, iterative stuff, for loops, if then if statements, things like that. It does loads. So let's actually have a look at a very simple module. A very simple module that is one file. And I do forgive you if you're a little bit worse for wear this morning. We are going to look at code, but it's in dark mode. So a module is divided into blocks. This is the first block, and the block type is Terraform. You see at the top, that's what it is. And the block body has got some instructions in it, or they're called arguments in HCL terms. And they tell Terraform things like the version of Terraform that we require, the providers we need for the module, where they come from, and the required versions of those as well. Use version constraints in your modules. It's really important because otherwise every time you initialize a new Terraform project, you'll just get the latest versions. If those providers have changed, things could break. So version constraints let you upgrade to new versions of providers as and when you want to. So This is our provider block, and we can see it's got a label, Jamf Pro, so it's configuring the Jamf Pro provider. Its body's got arguments for all the settings specific to that provider, so you can see things like the instance URL and the authentication method, and a username and password. Don't be alarmed, there's a plain text username and password in there. Don't do that. Terraform uses variables, and you should always use variables when you're dealing with secrets, and they should always reference secrets in some kind of vault, like GitHub secrets, for example. It will handle those as well. Terraform can use variables from environment variables that are passed to it as well during the run. And this is a resource block, something we're going to create. And it's got two labels. The first is the resource type of resource, Jamf Pro Static Computer Group. And then the second is the name we're going to give it inside Terraform, how Terraform's going to track it. And that's called JNUC Max. One argument, which is the name of the group. That's it. And when that's created, you'll get that. Here's another resource block. This will create a script, very easy. And we can see you've got familiar things. If you're used to creating scripts, you'll know what they all mean. The script content, we can populate that here doc style here. Terraform's got functions to actually read files from disk as well. So you could have a file function and reference a path if you want to as well. It's very flexible. And look, that's a script. And then look, there's a policy, so a little bit bigger. Now this is where it gets really interesting in our module, because we might want to create these things that depend on each other. So this policy, if we're going to be running the script in a policy, we need to depend on that script, for example. Again, we can see all these familiar arguments in the policy we are used to. Trigger frequency, things like that. So let's look carefully at the scope block and specifically computer group IDs, and we can see we're not specifying a list of ID numbers, but we're actually referencing a resource that we created earlier, essentially the resource type and then its name, and then its ID attribute here. So Terraform will know it's going to be the ID of that static group that it's going to create. It will fill that in for us. And there we go. Same for the script. We reference the script by its ID. And Terraform will work out something called the dependency graph and create what we need. Okay, so initialize, plan, and apply, the three building blocks of Terraform. Let's have a look at it in action. So I apologize for the small screen. You might have to squint a little bit. We have essentially a Jamf Pro instance here. It's got a few bits and pieces in it. It's mostly empty, some policies, etc. There's a static group. That says ClickOps group, very small, and then no scripts. And we'll switch over to VS Code or our terminal. We're just running Terraform locally here, and we have our module declaring those three resources that we want to create, the group, the script, the policy. First thing we'll do with Terraform, again, your pipeline will do this as well, is we do a Terraform init. It will download all the providers that the project needs and succeeds. We do a Terraform plan. So this essentially is to say, if Terraform were to run, what would it do? And that spits out a whole load of output. And we can see lots of green pluses. A green plus means create. So we can see all the resources that are going to be created and all their attributes. And we'll see some values for attributes. If you squint really hard, it will say known after apply. So we don't know what they are yet until Terraform creates those resources. Like the ID of the script doesn't exist yet. If we're happy, we run Terraform apply, and then we can say yes, and it will go away and apply the changes it's planned. And it's quite quick. We can head back to Jamf Pro and do a quick refresh, and we can see now we've got a script. Just to prove it's real. And we should have our group as well. There it is. And we have a policy that is scoped to that group, and that is also running that script. And we added a recon maintenance payload in there as well, just for fun. Okay, let's make a change next. So next year will be 2026. So we'll rename our group to JNUC 2026 Max inside Terraform, and we'll save that. We'll run another Terraform apply, and we'll see what's going to happen if we look closely at the output. We'll see some yellow, and we can see our static group resource wants to change the name from 2025 Max to 2026 Max, just there. If we say yes, it will apply the change. So it's just going to rename that group. It doesn't unlink it from the policy or delete it or anything like that. It's doing essentially a put request in the API for that group. Again, the provider handles what it should do in the API. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. Think about your code in Terraform. Okay, I'm going to make a change in Pro next, and I'm going to add my ClickOps group. And we'll save that. And then let's head back to our terminal. We'll run another apply. And Terraform has detected the change in state, and we can see there is a little red dash next to the group ID that is not in Terraform state because it wants to remove it. So Terraform essentially wants to maintain the state that we declare in our module. Anyone changes stuff outside of that, Terraform's going to try and set it back. And we can go back and we can see that the ClickOps group has gone. There we go. Okay, so Terraform's really good at managing and maintaining any infrastructure it creates, but there's a few what-if scenarios. So what if you want to import existing infrastructure? Someone creates something in the web UI. It's not going to exist as far as Terraform's concerned because Terraform didn't create it. So what do we do? Well, it's quite tricky, but it's possible. You can import with an example like this. You use import blocks. So in this example, we have a data block. We'll data source the ClickOps group, and then we'll have an import group to actually assign that to a new ID. And then we declare what we want our ClickOps group to be in Terraform state with a new resource block there. And when you run it, you'll get output like this. So it's actually going to say it will import a resource. There we go. What about if you want to sort of share management of your Jamf Pro console? So some stuff ClickOps, some stuff in GitOps. You can still do that. Terraform has got lifecycle blocks as well. So if you've used it, you'll know what they are. Stick a lifecycle block inside your resource, and you can say ignore changes for any of the arguments that that resource needs. So in this example, we're going to ignore changes for scope, which means if someone starts changing scope of that policy, Terraform won't detect it and won't try and set it back. Okay, strap yourselves in. I know it's still Thursday morning. I'm going to have a little bit of a more comprehensive example. Let's look at deploying Jamf self-service mobile device app to our iOS devices, all the moving parts there, what a module might look like. Here we go, so it gets a bit longer. First of all, we're going to have another provider. This one is called iTunes Search API. It's quite useful. I'm going to come back to that later, but it will fetch the metadata for an iTunes Store app, or an App Store app, sorry. And then we can use that metadata later when we create our resource, instead of hard coding it. Okay. Now, assuming we have a brand new Jamf Pro instance, we want to upload our VPP token. Again, that's what we do in MSP Services. We create new instances. So there is a volume purchase token resource. And we can see now we're using the file argument for the service token path there. So that service token has to exist somewhere inside your Terraform project to use that. Or you can just cat it out as text and hard code it in. Up to you. This resource will make Terraform wait for 90 seconds, so it's just a time sleep resource. We need that because have you ever noticed when you upload a VPP token, you've got to wait a little while for the licenses to sync? This is how we can get Terraform to do it. And we make this resource depend on the VPP location. So essentially, the VPP location is created first before the time sleep resource is created. That means when Terraform runs, it will create the VPP token, and then it's going to wait 90 seconds after. It won't wait before. So it depends on is useful for that if we want to control a bit of order. Okay, and then we're going to data source from the iTunes Search API provider all the metadata for the Jamf self-service app. And that provider wants an App Store URLs list. So you just give it the App Store URL for Jamf self-service or the app that you want to get that. And the data source results that come back also include an icon as a base64 encoded string. Terraform can handle that and then create a local file resource on disk for that icon inside a folder that, again, we variable substitute the ID of or the track ID from the app, which is unique. And then we use a resource from the Jamf Pro provider to upload the icon to Jamf Pro. So we've got it there. So yes, I think we can. Oh, I went. Did I go back? No, I didn't. Sorry, I will go back. So yes, we're looking at now the resource to create the application itself, and it depends on the time sleep resource we created before. So the application will only be created after that time sleep resource has been created. That means after Terraform's been doing nothing for 90 seconds. Then it will create the app because the licenses will be there. Okay. And we can see we're using the data source from the iTunes Search API to fill in all those things like the name, the bundle ID, the version, all that stuff. We don't have to know what it is. Saves us having to hard code it. Very useful. And this stuff changes quite often as well. All the settings for the app as well that we want are here, so they translate quite nicely into the UI. You can see what they're doing. We can decide how we want them to be. There we go. And then this is where we assign the content licenses from our VPP token as well. And again, we're referencing the VPP location Terraform just created, because we can specify its ID there and reference it that way. Got you covered for app config as well. Self-service needs that. We're here docking that. No reason you can't have it in an XML file. And just use the file function for it. And nothing special going on in scope. We just want to deploy this everywhere. Okay. 3 minutes left. I know this is a long session. One more thing. I'm really keen to get this in. And this is our new provider that we've created ourselves at Jamf for the Jamf Platform APIs that you've seen in the keynote. And by the way, that keynote where they ran the pull request to create a blueprint was real. It ran that provider. No smoke and mirrors. I was sitting there with trepidation as they were refreshing the page, and nothing was happening for a little while, and then it appeared. I was very relieved. But that was a real pipeline doing the thing. So we're starting with resources for compliance benchmarks and blueprints. And using this provider, you can now create and manage them both using Terraform. Use the providers together, the Jamf Pro and the Jamf Platform one. And it's early days, but we'll be adding more and more to our Jamf Platform provider as more and more Jamf Platform APIs start to exist. Have a look at that QR code there. That is an example GitHub repo with an example Terraform project using that provider to create some example baselines, some blueprints as well, and some compliance benchmarks. Bits and pieces. You can clone that, and if you've got access to the Platform API, you can play with that right now. And with that, I shall hand you back to Tristan.
Yes, very quickly, I guess. Yes. So just a quick recap. Use Git for storing your Jamf config. That's already a big first step. Use Terraform to automate your deployment. And then, of course, there's much more things to be done. There are the open source projects, most notably. So if this is something that is interesting to you, just look at it, try and see how Terraform works, and give us use cases, for example, or create product issues in the GitHub repo. We need more people to come work on that. The more use cases we have, the best the providers will be, and the more we can automate stuff. At Netop, we are automating mostly the deployment aspect and not much more the life cycle. It's very hard to do. So we are not yet able to deploy everything automatically, but still deploying our whole template takes us half an hour instead of 2 days. So I'd say that's pretty great for now. And now Q&A. You guys have 1 minute.
Make it quick.
Choose your question. And we just stay here afterwards, I guess, because maybe you have lots of questions.
We're not going anywhere, or I'm not.
You had mentioned a tool that you can use to get a code representation of your existing Jamf Pro instance. What was that tool?
So you mean the tool, the open source tool?
Yeah, you said a tool, and I just couldn't catch the name of it.
A replicator, I believe, or Jamf Migrator, yeah. So that will just that can read back all of the policies, objects, things in essentially their raw API format, which you could store in a GitHub repository. It's not compatible with HCL Terraform, but it's a good way to have to start with version control if you want to look at a different means of doing it and extract stuff out in a way that you can manage that way.
Jamf Replicator, is that what you said?
Jamf Replicator, yeah. It used to be called Jamf Migrator.
So one last question for me. Is there a way that we can have a test cloud instance to test this stuff if we don't have the capability to do that right now? So somebody like on-prem or something.
I'd probably say speak to your CSM. That's my go-to answer for anything where I don't know.
All right, thank you guys. That was great. If anybody has any more questions, these guys will be available outside the ballroom.